Okay. So I'm Sheldon Bilsker, and I'm the founder and owner of Orca Institute. We started our school in 1986. I'm old,
Sure.
and at the time we were a hypnotherapy school, and we trained people to be counseling hypnotherapists, and we did this for many years. I taught the program across Canada. And then, Diane, about how long ago was it when you started?
Probably about
Oh,
17 years ago.
yeah, 17, 18 years. Okay, so over the years, we, back then with no internet, I would just travel around, do the course on site, and then eventually moved everything onto DVDs and eventually online. And Diane came on board and we decided to do a counseling skills program, which Diane put together. And we've been at it ever since. We're the oldest hypnotherapy school in Canada. And we were one of the first schools, probably along with VCCT, to get registered back then. Now we're a designated school with PTIB, or whatever they're calling themselves this week. And we've recently expanded our counseling skills program. So it was 770 hours over 9 months, and it's now 1,200 hours over 12 months. And we just recently got that approved. Part of our program, as you know, is supervision, which it's easy to get confused with the terms, because supervision, when we say supervision, we're talking about 200 direct client contact hours and 40 hours of actual online classes with Diane, and then 10 hours of incremental consultation with Diane. And Diane can expand on that more in a minute. So I think that's really all I have to say about the school. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll open it up to questions now.
Hi, Sheldon,
Hi.
and Jan. Thanks for your time. My question is, you've been doing this for a long time. Where do you know what the 200 hours, can you apply for the registered therapeutic counselor or the professional counselor?
Well, once you finish your 200 hours, and once you finish the supervision, because you've come out of VCCT, you'll be able to apply to this ACCT as a registered therapeutic counselor.
Okay. And the professional one needs more hours, is that correct?
Yeah,
Well, go ahead,
sorry,
Sheldon.
Diane. The RPC, Registered Professional Counselor, we recently became an approved school with them.
Okay.
I have just been informed that they do not accept hours that occur while you're doing the program.
Okay.
So direct client contact hours and supervision hours are only counted for that certification after you graduate. We actually just found this out today. It's nowhere on their website, and it was a bit of a surprise to us. So there's two things there that are different from ACCT. There's that, and there's also that you have to do a written exam.
And this is to get into the CPCA.
Yes,
Okay.
but ACCT, just as Diane said.
Yeah, Sheldon writes a letter and I write a letter, and you'll get a transcript, and that will go with your application to ACCT, and you will be accepted into ACCT and get the designation of registered professional counselor.
Can I jump in quickly just with a
Sure.
clarification? You said you get, with the hours of your program, you get the registered, the RTC, so you can bypass the candidate position application
Yeah,
then and go straight to the RTC.
You can, while you're a student, you can apply as a candidate.
Yeah.
But I really don't recommend it. There's not a huge
Okay.
advantage to doing that. It's really not a whole lot of difference.
Okay. Okay, no, that's a great distinction. I didn't realize that. So it's actually sort of the package with the way your program is set up. You go through the program with the education experience of VCCT. You can apply directly to the RTC.
Yeah, and the reason we use the word apply,
yes,
that it's not an automatic thing, because obviously if there's an ethics concern or whatever, we have no control over that.
Yeah, of course.
But beyond that, we're an approved school with them, and you're definitely ready to apply at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we created the program based on what ACCT wanted as qualifications to join. So all of our students, once they graduate, they're applying to ACCT and they're getting accepted.
Okay.
And the executive director is a former student.
Wonderful. Sorry, Anna, I jumped in there, but I just wanted to.
Oh, thank you.
that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And another question is, your clients that we would be counseling, how many, who are these clients, and how quickly do you think we could get the 200 hours? Because I know in some places it's really hard to get that. There's a shortage of clients.
Diane?
Well, you'll have to get your own clients eventually, but what happens is the first 25 hours you'll be working with students. Once you've reached the 25-hour point, then what you can do is apply for liability insurance, and you can go outside of the ORCA group with some guidelines. Because you've all come out of a counseling program, you know, what we'll do is we'll look individually at some of the guidelines that we're giving our students who are actually still in the program. Yours will be able to soften a bit. But you will, for the most part, need to find your own clients.
Okay, so you're just mostly, so you don't, your ORCA doesn't have a client base that comes there.
No.
Okay.
If you want to work with the student group, because we have two sets of student groups, right? We have the people that are in the counseling skills program right now, and we have the people that are in the hypnotherapy program. If you want to work with the students all the way through, then you would just keep letting them know you were available for sessions, and you will get people from those two groups. The other thing that happens, as you know, is that because when I went through VCCT, we did exchanges with each other. When you're doing those first 25 hours, you will get people asking you to do exchanges. So you have to decide, how many counseling sessions as a client do I want to do a week? So some people you may have to say, I don't want to be a client, but I'm happy to be your counselor. And certainly with the qualifications you have, it would be really valuable for everybody to say yes, because you have more experience than some of the people who are currently in the program. There's a benefit there.
Also, we have a fair number of students consistently in the program. And you do have access to all the other students, whether they be hypnotherapy or counseling students, to work with and trade off with.
And we have students, just like in your program, we have students starting all the time, right? There's not a particular start date. You can start anytime you want. So it's constantly getting renewed with new people starting the program, both programs.
So what, apart from, do they get anything, what do they get for being counseled? They don't get any hours themselves. They would just get counseling, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time you can count it towards your 200 is if you're actually the counselor.
Okay.
We use Moodle as a platform. So it's a pretty user-friendly thing. And Diane, how often do they need to submit their notes?
They should submit their notes once a week. If you want, I can just start talking about the
Sure.
if you're finished, Anna, are you finished?
Actually,
asking?
are there any other questions before we do that?
Katya?
Well, I have several questions.
Please, let me, sorry, I interrupted, Anna. Anna, are you done? Because I know you have to leave.
Oh, no, I'll stay for a bit longer. No,
Okay.
I'm interested to hear other questions.
Thanks, Katya.
Thank you. So, will these 25 hours be with the same student or with different ones? And who decides that?
You're going to be, this is your, in a way, this is preparation for when you create your own practice. So what you will do is I will be sending you an intake form that you can change and modify, make your own. I will be recommending to you and everybody else that you do at least a 10-minute telephone conversation with everybody that contacts you to want to do counseling, whether it's a student or not, because you want to really practice that skills of listening. Can I work with this person? Do I have the skills to work with this person? Is it within my scope of practice? So you get to say yes, you get to say no. I will give you some guidelines on who you can and cannot work with. Like you can't work with anybody who's 19 years or younger, no couples or family. We'll talk about trauma, we'll talk about suicide, because there are some guidelines around that. And other than that, you get to choose. And you also can stay with we've had people that have stayed with the same counselor all the way through the program, but it'll be you and whoever your client is that you'll make that decision together.
Okay, and then what are this is a question that no one has been able to answer for me, so I'm really interested in your perspective. What are the benefits to applying with ACTT or with a CPCA? Like, what are the real differences or distinctions between becoming a registered therapeutic counselor or a registered professional counselor?
Diane, should I
There
take
isn't
that?
really. It's more of who you sort of feel drawn to. They're both the same. You will come out of, once you get accepted by either one of them, what you do is you now have an official designation. So it really, it doesn't matter. There's no difference. It's one's not going to give you more than the other. The
Okay,
difference is though, with ACCT, you will not need to write an extra exam. And that for some people is a big thing.
Okay,
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to add to that. It is possible that sometime in the future, ACCT will have an exam. Okay, but there's nothing official at this point. But we have no
Okay.
control over what ACC does in the future.
And
Yeah.
a lot of the changes that possibly will come will be based on what ACCT is anticipating that the government's going to ask for. So yeah, as Sheldon's saying, we don't have any control over that. But right now, you don't have to write an exam.
Okay, but there are things to be aware of.
Mhm.
And there could be some changes coming. And it's important to understand that, first of all, ACCT and CPCA used to be the same association.
No, they didn't, Sheldon. No,
No?
CPCA was the first one. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened back then. ACCT was created because of all the stuff that was happening back then. So a lot of us moved from the CPCA to
Okay, I
ACCT.
stand corrected.
Yeah. So-
Okay. Associations are preparing for possible regulation.
Yes, I understand that. And my
Okay.
last question is, I looked on the websites of both these associations maybe 5 months ago, and I think they only required 99 hours of supervised counseling, direct client contact hours. So has the number been raised to 200 recently?
I'm not sure where you found that, but we've been doing the counseling skills program for over 3 years now. And for over 3 years, it has always been 200.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all my questions for so far. Thanks.
So how this is,
Sorry, Carla has a question. Can you be registered in both associations? And the answer is yes.
and it'll be expensive, just be aware of that.
Yeah, I don't see any purpose in that, but you can be.
So how the counseling skills program works is that you'll have a beginning date and an end date, and in that period of time, you'll need to do the 200 client sessions, 200 hours, and you'll also need to come to 20 of the counseling skills Zoom sessions. They're 2-hour sessions where people come together, and they are incredible. The what people bring, and it's all about cases. It's about your relationship to the clients, your relationship with yourself as a counselor. All of that is the things that I will create the space for in those sessions, and that's what we do. So anything that has to do with counseling, bring it. Bring that to the sessions. During that 200 hours, you will choose 3 people that you will ask them if you can record the sessions. And I will look at those sessions as long as they're between 45 minutes and an hour. I'll watch the whole thing. And then you and I individually will have a call. And I will ask you, what would you like from me in the way of feedback from this session? You and I will work together on how I can support you in moving in the direction you want to move in. You'll probably want me to give you some idea of what I saw and how I might be able to help you. We will work together on that as well, because every one of you is going to have a slightly different style of counseling, right? So I'm not trying to turn you into anything, but I want to help you to be able to create what you want to create, and also to help you see some of the areas that there might be where you can focus more on during the next period of time before your next video, to try and hone your skills. So that's what we get to work on. So you do the first video, you go and you play with it for a while. You'll do a second video. We'll have exactly the same thing. We'll have another up to an hour conversation. You'll go and take that information. We'll do the third video. So the supervision part of the program in that 200 hours is incredible, because you get a lot of one-on-one focus. In the calls, the 2-hour calls that happen 4 times a month, again, you can bring whatever you want to those sessions. But the other thing too is, because you're working with the students, there's going to be times when you may come to the session and your client is sitting right in, on the Zoom call. If you have a situation where you have to talk to somebody and you don't want to bring it to the Zoom call, that's what those 10 hours are for, right? 3 of them are going to be the feedback from the sessions, but the rest of it is you have contact with me. So emergencies, situations where you're not sure about something and you're really struggling with it, that's what I'm here for, is to support you in this continuous growth and movement. Because you're all coming out of VCCT with a lot of skills, and also a lot of places that you want to really hone and fine tune. That's what supervision is all about. And as you can see, I'm very excited about supervision. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about. So the opportunity for that is really wonderful.
We have a question in the comments about liability insurance after the first 25 hours. We have an agreement with an insurance company that after 25 hours of students being in supervision, they can then apply, and we give them a letter for that, for liability insurance, according to our rules, which allows them to work outside of just students at Orca.
With some guidelines for sure. It's called the
With
Preventative
guidelines.
Health Services. It's the Preventative Health Services Group. So if you want to check it out, it's about 220, some maybe a little bit more than that a year for the liability insurance. And these guys are quite wonderful because they're very eclectic. So they will often, if there are other things that you do, other types of counseling and stuff, you can let them know, and they can often cover those as well.
Okay, another question. When can we start charging clients? Diane, you want to take that?
Not really.
Or should I?
I think you should.
This is an interesting question because there's no clear-cut answer. Legally, there is no regulation in BC. So legally, you can do whatever you want within reason. But as a school, we're a bit reluctant with charging, but sometimes we do get students who are already in practice or in similar fields and want to add this. And occasionally we do give permission to charge. ACCT for their candidate certification allows them to charge, and I think they have a formula of some type, which is part of the going rate.
Yeah,
So I think what we're
75% of the going rate.
okay. I think what we're doing right now is when somebody asks us if they can charge, we're treating each case individually and making a decision based on that, based on the experience they come in with. But it's very important that you, if you're charging, to let the client know that you are a student in training.
And certainly that would be something to put on the intake form at the top that you're a student. You know, and then you let the person know.
What are the stipulations for what clients we can counsel during our practicum?
So the guidelines that I give everybody are these. Now, because you're coming out of a counseling program, I would want to look at these situations individually. But these are the guidelines I'm going to give you. And you'll have to have a conversation with me and we can look at it. As I mentioned before, you can't work with anybody 19 years or younger while you're doing your 200 hours. No couples or family therapy. What I'm saying to people around addictions is that if you get somebody who's is actually contacting you because they have an addiction, a serious addiction, not to take that on at the beginning. You know, unless addictions are something that you've got lots of training in, it can be very problematic. So I would say not to. But let's say you get somebody who's had a gambling addiction 5 years ago, and now they've been watching TV and they're kind of getting a little nervous and a little bit edgy around, you know, some of these feelings that are coming up because of the ads and things like that. And they just really need somebody to talk to. If you felt that you could take that on, it was within your scope of practice, then you get to make that decision. But if the person has a serious addiction, even a serious gambling addiction, I would encourage you not to take it on unless you've had some specific training. Trauma is sort of the same thing. I'm encouraging people not to work with somebody, let's say, who recently remembered that they were sexually abused and now they want to start counseling. Don't take that on right away because you know that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Somebody who's having flashbacks, anxiety attacks, and panic attacks because of trauma, I would say, you know, we really need to talk about it. Okay. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be an absolute 100% no-go for you, but it's important that we talk about it so that we also take into account that with those first 25 hours, that might not be the time to do that. Let's look at that later on, okay? But I just want you all to know that nothing's 100% cut and dried. I want to talk to you, and the two of us together will have a conversation about it. Suicide would be the same thing. If somebody is actually actively suicidal, I would say don't take that on at the beginning. If you know right away, don't take it on at the beginning. There will be questions on the intake form. You can add questions to your intake form. Oftentimes with suicide, it's a funny thing. What we found is even though people have an intake form, clients sometimes don't answer that question, and people don't find out until 3 or 4 or 5 sessions later that the person is suicidal. And what I'm recommending to everybody to do is before you start is to go and create yourself a cheat sheet on suicide. Questions to ask, some tips and things that you can find. You can search for Suicide Canada, suicide counselors tips, and create yourself a sheet that you have, so that if you do get surprised by something, you're not feeling, oh my goodness, now what do I do? Finish the conversation, make sure the client is safe, and then call me right away and we'll talk about it. Okay?
Diane,
conflict-
sorry.
The last one is complicated situations. Sometimes a client starts to list off a list of what they want to do. And if you start getting that feeling inside of, oh my goodness gracious, I don't think I can do that, I'm encouraging people to trust themselves. That may be a time when you don't take that right now. It doesn't mean that, 6 months later, you're not going to be absolutely in a place where you could take that on. So I want to encourage people to enter into the supervision, the direct client contact hours with as much ease as counseling can happen in counseling, where you actually know situations and you can say, maybe not yet. Okay. Other than that, we'll have to look at each one individually, but those are the main guidelines.
Dan, can you see the comments?
No, I can't.
Okay, so we got, do you recommend to have a call with every client or intake?
Yes.
Every client or intake form may be sufficient.
A call with everybody, because one of the things is, I've been in practice for over 20 years. And one of the things that I know is that an email, a text message, even a phone message is not a place where you're going to get enough information or even get a sense, do I want to work with this person? And do I have the skills? So to have at least a 10-minute conversation, you start to develop this ability to be able to know and trust yourself. I have no control over ultimately what you do, but I'm telling you, it makes the biggest difference, because people can write anything in a text message. And if you say yes based on a text message, you don't really know what's going on for that person at all until they get into your office or get onto Zoom. So every student, I'm recommending that they do the intake and at least a 10-minute phone call. And by the end of the phone call, what I'd like everybody to know is, what is this person coming to you for? Right? The intake's going to fill the rest of that in, but at least you know what they're coming for. And something that they might say will give you an opportunity to ask another question. You're listening, right? You're really listening. And all of a sudden you hear something, and something inside of you says, ask this. Now you've got some more information, and also you're starting to develop the relationship.
Okay, another comment. Is there going to be a set time period for start and end date of this supervision program?
Yes.
We're assigning 7 months for this program, with an option of 2 extensions at $60 per month. Normally, the start dates are ongoing, but in this case, since we're dealing with a group, we're going to have, I guess, one specific start date, which we'll decide on. Yes.
But you said that we should wait until we graduate to start, and that's going to be different for every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So if you wait to graduate before you start, no, I think what they're referring to is the start date of the program.
Right, but some of the people won't be starting at the same time because they haven't graduated yet, I think is what Katia is saying. Right? I mean, it may be a group, but it may not be this group all starting the same date, because this group isn't all finished their program.
Oh, I see. I wasn't aware of that. I guess we'd have to determine when everybody in this group would be finished, or that's a difficult one, because we're looking at a reduced fee as a group. So to be honest, I'm not sure how. We'll have to figure that out, but I'm not sure at this point how we'll go about that. I'm not sure when everybody in this group is finished.
Can I just ask a question, Sheldon?
Sure.
Do students have to be graduated, or can they begin the program a few months prior?
There's no reason why they can't begin at any point.
Okay. Is there any kind of, I mean, this is a 12-month program, even 6 months into it, or once they have their basic counseling skills or clinical skills down? Is there a sort of amount
That's
of,
what we do, Faye, for the current students that are coming through our program, is
Okay.
once you've basically done the first module, which is basically basic counseling, note-taking and assessment,
yeah,
then it's time to start working with clients. So if your
Okay.
people, definitely if they're 6 months, they've probably done quite a few courses,
I-
because the courses are still 3 weeks long, right?
yeah, I would say even 3 months or earlier. So in that case, without that line of having to wait to graduate, that gives some more flexibility.
Yeah, that
For
should
when
be
people
fine.
can
That's what we
join.
do with our students now, so.
Yeah,
Well, in that case, it would be important for each student to let me know that, because that's going to govern what we do with the guidelines. Because if you're really just starting out, then we want to stick more strictly to the guidelines. But that'll be a private conversation between me and each student.
yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Katia?
Thanks, but I thought I heard Sheldon say that we have to wait until we graduate, otherwise the hours don't count. That's what I
That-
heard.
The CPCA, is that
No,
what you?
that's, don't get confused with CPCA.
But okay, so are we,
We're
I mean,
talking
are
about
you-
ACCT requirements.
yes, but so if I want to be certified with CPCA,
Mm,
I have to wait until I graduate. And I have to pass the exam, and then I could start my 200 hours
No.
of supervision.
Well, yes, but it won't be 200 hours at that point. CPCA has 3 different types of supervision. They have supervision as far as like as we do in classes. They have supervision that includes direct client contact. And then they have another category of supervision, which is just being in the field. And all those hours add up to 600 hours. So CPCA's requirements are very different from ACCT.
So would-
Katia, I might go and look at the website and check it out again. The CPCA website.
well, I'm starting to feel that both of you feel more comfortable with ACTT than CPCA.
Yes,
Well, because the requirements are very clear with ACCT. When you finish the program, you're finished. When you finish at VCCT, that's going to give you all the counseling that's required for the ACCT. And then all you need to do is the supervision. You do the supervision the way it's set up right now, you're into ACCT. So that's why you hear that in our voice around that.
yeah. But if you want to
No,
learn
no.
more about what CPCA requires on their website, they list how the hours are set up. And like I said, which came as a bit of a shock to us today after we got approved by them, is that they don't include any of our supervision hours. That's all your hours come after you graduate.
Sheldon, can I ask, is that's for their RPC? What about their candidate? Because that's 120 hours. Is your program eligible? You go through the program and you can apply as an
Yes,
RPC
you would
candidate?
be eligible to apply as a RPC candidate.
Okay, that's actually
But
quite significant because
eventually you'll still have to do the exam and you'll still have to do
Yeah.
the 600 hours
that's
over
clear.
and
Yeah, they
above
do
what
make,
you do with us.
yeah, and you have to write the exam after you do the 120 hours. So theoretically, students at VCCT could take your program, actually get the hours needed, supervised and direct the DCC hours needed to apply to become a candidate for the registered professional counselor. Get that, apply, do the exam, and then post, get those 600 hours.
That's right.
Which
But
would
you
be
still need the
required for
600
any
hours.
school, anyway, that's how they've set it up. So okay,
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it just, when ACCT started, I was involved in helping them get off the ground, basically. So we're just more comfortable with ACCT, nothing against being an RPC. There might be a slight advantage with RPC as far as insurance coverage, but I haven't seen any direct evidence of it. So basically, ACCT for us is the way to go. And as far as regulation, possible future regulation, we haven't heard from the BC government since May 2022. I've been involved in this for 30 years. And my personal opinion is that I wouldn't be surprised with a 2-seat majority right now that the BC government just really wants this to go away. I don't think they want to take action on it, and there are a huge number of steps to even get to the point where you start the process. So that's my feeling. I could be completely wrong. It's government. They can do whatever they want, but that's the feeling. Now, in saying that, associations of like ACCT and CPCA and others realize that it's a possibility. So what's happening now, and the reason we expanded our program, is because there's a trend to increase hours and increase requirements for the obvious reason that there could be legislation in the future. And everybody wants to be in the best position to deal with that. So I wouldn't be surprised if ACCT in the next year or so decides to change some things as far as requirements. But right now, nothing is on the table.
And if ACCT changes things where we can change the things to meet it, we will do that.
Yes, and from informal discussions, I don't think that would be an issue.
Katya?
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that there's a window of opportunity because ACCT has not changed its requirements yet. So for those of us who could graduate in the coming year and start this process, this would be this would position us in a stronger. This would put us in a stronger position to be certified with ACCT, and then should we in the future be so inclined, then we could further apply for CPCA.
That's right. And you'd have to write the exam
sure.
and all whatever their
Absolutely.
requirements are, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, the hardest part about this is there are unknowns. And so we can make educated guesses. Twice in the past, the BC government, in 2010 and 2014, the BC government announced that there would definitely be regulation for counselors. And both times it disappeared. We never heard about it again. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of political will to do that now, and it would surprise me if something happened all of a sudden. These things don't happen overnight. Alberta's trying to get regulation, and they're taking way longer than they thought they would, because these things are very complex. There's many, many steps to them, and they're not cheap. So for those factors, that's my opinion. But anything is possible. What I do tell students in general, when they ask, is get all the training and hours you can as soon as you can if you're seriously looking at getting into this field. Because let's say hypothetically, the BC government decides to start again with the regulation tomorrow, and they're going to go through the process. It's standard practice, it's not absolutely required, but it's standard practice to have a grandfathering period. During that grandfathering period, which is typically 2 to 3 years, it allows most current students to get in to the new regulatory college under the grandfathering clause. So I would say for current students at that time, if they ever do announcement, they're probably in pretty good shape. I can't guarantee that, but that's my opinion.
But I think, Katya, you've got it absolutely 100% on. Is this is the golden opportunity, because there hasn't been changes right now, so
Yeah.
for sure.
I'll throw out one other thing. Let's say you're in practice and regulation comes in. What I'm suggesting is if you're in a province that's regulated and you're going to see clients only online, then you set up a proprietorship in Saskatchewan. And that way you're under Saskatchewan jurisdiction. If for any reason you find yourself in a position where you're restricted to practice in that province.
Sorry, Sheldon, I did not understand any of what you said.
Okay. Saskatchewan is probably the last province outside of the Northwest Territories that is going to be regulated. So if you set up a proprietorship in Saskatchewan, which is very easy to do, and you only see people online, then you should have no problem practicing.
For a long time.
Now, then there's a Canadian Free Trade Agreement, and there, there's a lot of focus on labor mobility right now. And what that states is if you're a member of any regulatory college in any province in Canada, you can practice anywhere else in Canada without restriction. But yeah, in saying all that, my feeling is it would surprise me quite a bit if there's regulation and announcement around regulation.
I graduated from VCCT in 2003. And since 2003, I have been dealing with this.
Try
And
1986.
I used to sweat about it a lot more when I graduated. Now it's just like, oh,
Yeah, now she just lets me handle it.
I just want to be a counselor. Don't bug me.
Yeah, I'm just a policy nerd. So I was at the first meeting with the BC government in 1997 with the health professions group representing BCACC. And that's where this all started. And now we're on the board of FACT BC. And it's been like this a long time.
It's nice to get your perspective, Sheldon. And it's been quite frustrating trying to navigate what will happen or what won't with so little information and transparency from the government right now. So,
Well, it'll continue like that, you can be assured. And we just have to, do the best we can to keep slowly, incrementally raising standards.
mhm.
BCACC is a whole other story. I'm one of the founding members of BCACC. They did a huge 180 and left FACT BC, and that's a whole other story. And they're making a big push right now, but they haven't talked to the government since May 2022. So even they're not making any progress right now.
Yeah, so I see what you're doing right now. So Sheldon says, get the education and then get your practice started. And that way you get to do what you're passionate about, and whatever happens, you just each year you're going to do professional development. You're going to start to study the things that you're fascinated with and bring them into your practice. And you're doing as much as you can do when you do that.
If you want to learn more about this area, if you go on our website, the main blog video, on top of our blog section, I have an interview with somebody where I get into a lot of the weeds around this, so the whole history and that.
Katya?
Gotcha.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions. I think it would be very useful for me to have sort of a guideline about what kind of information I need to look for when I do a 10-minute phone conversation. I think that would be very helpful for me. Then the other thing is, sometimes intakes can take 1 hour, but sometimes they take longer. Does this count? Do intakes count towards direct client contact hours? Or is it just counseling?
Yes, and the
okay.
thing you have to consider though is this. If I make an appointment with you for a counseling session, and I desperately need some counseling, and I come to your office or I come on Zoom and you still want to do the intake and you haven't sent me the intake ahead of time, as a counselor, I'm not going to inundate my client with a bunch of questions. What I'm going to do is gradually over time get some of that information and get the information I really need, either by giving it to them ahead of time, my conversation on the phone. And your conversation on the phone, Katya, is basically, do you have the skills to work with what this person wants? But more than that, what is your sense? Can you and do you want to work with this person? Because every now and then you're going to get a phone call from somebody, and it doesn't happen often, but everything inside of you screams, don't take this on. And that's what this phone call is going to teach you to be able to hone. So the main reason that you're having it is, what do they want to come to counseling for? And can I offer that to them? And do I want to? Because I have to tell you, I've worked with lots of people with addictions, but it is not my favorite place to work. It is not the place where I would choose to work, even though I've said yes to some people. So somebody phones me up and says, I need an addictions counselor. I say, there are so many people out there that are so much better at that than me. I'm not the person to come to. That's what I want to do on that phone call, is decide, can we do this together? So that if
Okay.
you get to the end of that 10-minute phone call and you still don't know why I phoned you, I want you asking another question. What is it you would like to work on when you come to counseling? What's really important for you, right? And that when you can end that conversation going, okay, I can do that, or I'd like to ask you to give me a couple days, and I will contact you in a couple of days to let you know if I really feel that I have the skills to offer you what you need. You give yourself a couple of days to think about it or whatever you want, and then you have a chance to go back to the client, because you may decide that you don't want to take that on right now. That's basically what that 10-minute phone call is all about.
Okay. Yeah, I understand it can act as an opportunity to create some therapeutic rapport, and also like act as a filter. And I also took a trauma course, and the instructor was very clear. Sometimes intake interviews, when they're just perfunctory, can be quite traumatizing, because we're actually asking questions that are very private, and the only way to have meaningful answers is if there's a trust relationship that gets established. So the instructor was saying sometimes the intake is completed in 3 sessions, and we shouldn't rush the process.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
so I
that counts.
understand.
That's all counseling. That's all
Okay.
counseling. That is whatever your sessions are an hour, whatever happens in that hour is what happens in that hour.
Okay, then what happens if, for example, after the end of the intake, however long it takes, something emerges, and then I realize this is something that I cannot take on? Like, isn't it considered like client abandonment after these
Well, you
sessions?
and I are going to have a conversation, right? Because don't forget, you started this whole thing off with, I'm a student.
Okay.
And as a student, there are some things that I'm able to work with, and there may be some things that I can't. And I would stick that right on my intake form somehow that, but you're very clear about that. So as you're talking and you're starting to get a sense, you may say to the person, I just really want to remind you, as a student, I haven't had any experience with this. So I really feel at this point, I won't be able to take that on. You may have to find somebody else. Right? If you run into that 3 sessions later, you're not just going to abandon them. You're going to phone me, and you and I are going to have a conversation, and I'm going to help you come to some decision.
Okay, and I
Don't
guess,
think you're in this alone. You're not.
okay, and maybe, I mean, a part of that phone conversation could be, yes, I will take you on as a client, with a caveat that should the intake helps something surface that I'm not qualified to take on at this point, I will let you know, but we will work on a referral together, or we can phrase it in those terms. Would that be
Yeah,
appropriate?
and you'll find an elegant way of doing that for each individual person, because you'll get a sense of a vulnerability with some people, and you'll also, it'll be very clear with other people that you can just say something very short, you know. But yeah, I would certainly be, and don't forget, these people know that you're offering free counseling for the most part. This is a practicum, right? Whether it's free or not, this is still a practicum. So yes, and if it's really important for you, you're going to find your own unique way of wording it, and you'll get very good at that based on the conversation, because you've had the practice of the conversations. Yeah.
I just
And
want
if you don't know what to do, you call me after.
I just, DB,
I have maybe a bit more of a technical question. I'm a distance ed student, so most of my interactions are online, and I'm just wondering, are all of these hours and all of the services you guys provide available online, or are there
completely online.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we'll do Zoom calls for the 3 sessions. The 2-hour, the 22-hour things you do, those are all online. Yeah, except for
Okay.
when you pick up the phone and you phone me.
Now, as far as student loans, student loans are looking into this because they have to determine how a process of applying, because you're only doing part of the program. I'm waiting for them to get back to me. It should be any day now. And so they're figuring it out, and they'll let me know what has to happen. Now, if you're already in a program on a student loan, you'd really have to call SABC and see what they say, because that's not our expertise. But I will let everyone know as soon as I hear from student ABC.
Sorry, was that a hand?
Yes.
Yes, Katya.
Sorry, I have a ton of questions. So the purpose of the intake, is it to make a diagnosis or an assessment, or is it just for client documentation? Like,
You can't diagnose. Counselors are mandated not to diagnose, so you cannot diagnose.
okay.
The intake form is an assessment. And what you're assessing is, is it within your scope of practice to work with this person? And also to get a little bit of the history. The thing is that people will choose to fill out whatever they want or not want on the intake form. And I find that if I do say yes, because I've had the conversation, some of that stuff that's on the intake form, we can gradually get. We don't have to get all at once, right? So if I've said yes to the person, I may be curious about certain things they leave off their intake form, or I may just let that unfold as it unfolds. But that's what it's for. It's an assessment.
Okay. And then do you require session notes or process notes?
Yeah, what you're going to do is within Moodle is that there's a section where you're going to put all of your notes. And the last section is going to be for the notes where you wouldn't give to a lawyer. right? Your personal notes. So you'll fill in kind of what approach you did, what the client brought, what were some of the insights, if you gave homework or not. And then the last section is for your personal notes. What happens is whatever association you're going to apply to, but right now let's talk about ACCT, I have to go and look at those notes. And I will give you feedback on whether those notes are detailed enough. And you don't need to write a dissertation. I want to just know some information, and as long as they're complete, then I'm going to be happy with what you write. But I need to look at those before I can graduate you, and the
So
videos. And
So will you keep all the notes for all these 200 hours?
yes, you
Are-
will be typing them into Moodle. Yes.
But you are going to keep them. So I am going to keep a file and you are going to keep a file?
Well, we have it in Moodle is where we have it. So yes, there will be a place where they're stored.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to keep your own notes just in case the ones in Moodle get lost. You know,
Yes, we
computers
encourage
crash, right?
always keep a backup of whatever you submit.
Laura?
Hi, I was just wondering, so all sounds actually really good in terms of getting those hours. Um, so are you looking to find sort of a core group and then you'll decide on a start date for this program and get it going?
That's
Is
correct.
that- yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And so I might have to jump off this call now, but I'll just look in my email for when you've made a decision about a start date and
Okay, and I guess
Decide
Faye
on-
will be working with you on doing that, or?
yeah, okay, so I'll keep an eye on it. I think it
Okay.
sounds like a really great program, so thank you for
Yeah.
taking the time
Great.
to do
I
this
look
call.
forward to working with you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, what I can do is once we get the recording, I'll send it out to everyone so everyone will get it. And then Sheldon and Diane, I will get your contact info forward. And would it be helpful if I send all this information to students again and interested and they contact you directly? Would that be a good way to work?
Yeah.
Well, if
we
they
can
want
do
to
that.
register, then they go through Sheldon.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just kind of get the information forward and so
Yeah.
that.
Because of the price structure,
Mhm.
ideally, we want to have a start date for everyone together, and then we can work out whatever the fee reduction will be. And with a specific start date, then we can really get going with it.
Okay, so I suppose first step is getting any interested student, once they get
Yes.
the information, probably contact you
Yeah.
this
Once
week.
we're ready to go, everybody fills out the registration
Yeah.
form on our website.
Okay,
We'll collect all those till we have them all.
yeah,
We'll put a start date enough ahead to give us time to do that.
yeah. Okay,
And then our assistant Chelsea will handle it from there as far as the registration.
sounds good. So
And
I'll
once
send
you-
out info
sorry.
this week when I'm probably Wednesday, then I can send everything out.
Right.
Yeah, and once you all start, then my phone number and my contact will be there. We should have individually, you should have a conversation with me near the beginning when you start. Okay, once you've registered and started.
Do you have an idea of what your preferred start dates will be? I guess the first step is to just see how many people are interested. And from there, we can set a date. Probably not a good idea to set a date in advance. Before that, really need to do this a step at a time. We'll start as soon as we can reasonably start. So the sooner everybody gets their information in, the sooner we can go. Okay. If you go on our website and you go to counseling skills course details and scroll down, you'll see the supervision section, and you can go in and it gives you a course outline as well if you want to review that. Any other questions?
DB?
Regarding the 20 mandatory classes that you guys have, those were Zoom sessions. What kind of schedules do you guys normally have those on, just for anybody who's got other
Yeah,
things?
it's 4 times a month. So I usually do it either a Tuesday or Wednesday. I think the Tuesday is at 7 o'clock. The Wednesday is at 6 Pacific time. And then there's Saturday and Sunday for a couple of them. And the Saturday one starts at 10 Pacific and the Sunday one starts at 9 a.m. Pacific.
But
So
you're
most of the
required to
time
attend
coming,
2 of them.
most of the, yeah, sorry, yeah. Yeah, I just talked over Sheldon. Most of the time people come to 2, but what you want to do is keep an eye on your calendar. You want to leave some supervision so that you don't want to use it all up at the beginning. You want to have some all the way through, and you can also double up, even doing 3 at the end if you need to catch up on a couple. So the calendar is there for the whole year. So if you know when your end date is, you can really calculate by just, okay, if I came to 2 a month, this will be this many. So it looks like this month I'll have to come to 3, and maybe that month I'll come to 3. And if you miss one, then you know, okay, I may have to catch up later on. And if you're not sure how many you've done, you can always ask me because I have a record of them.
And that's the only part of the course that's pre-scheduled.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we have to submit assignments for these 40 hours of classes?
No, your student notes.
Okay.
And when you enter your student notes, Moodle will keep track of how many hours you've done. So it will calculate your clients, it will calculate your hours. So you'll be able to see, okay, I've done this many hours out of my 200.
Okay.
And the videos, yes, the videos, that's sort of an assignment. It is an
There's
assignment.
3
sorry.
videos
It
to
is an
submit.
assignment. Yeah, you'll do 3. And you can record them on, I'd love you if you loved it if you recorded it on Zoom. Some of the other platforms, the recording is terrible.
Yes, use
But-
Zoom for
But if
sure.
you have another platform, first, we also have to figure out how you're going to get it to me because I have to be able to see it. Okay.
So you will
Who is the
also
best?
get a folder on Google Drive assigned to you, and that's to upload your video to.
I view the videos and then I immediately delete them from the folder. And then you need to delete them from your end as well. But once I've deleted it from my end, I no longer can see it. So you can guarantee your clients the only person that's going to see it is me. And once I viewed it, I delete it. I don't need it anymore because I take copious notes. So. And if you do want me to look at a specific area because you're really interested in something, giving me that information is really valuable. Okay, because we want to work together on this. This is a partnership.
Very important not to fall behind in the program. So if something happens, if you think you're going to start getting behind, contact Diane.
Because life happens, right? Life happens to all of us. So don't think again that you need to do this alone. You know, that's what we're here for. So let me know and we'll work something out. And if I don't know what to do, I'll phone the big guy, Sheldon.
And I'll try to figure something out.
There you go.
Okay. Any other questions? Great. Should we wrap it up here? Thank you for coming.
It's lovely to
Appreciate
meet
it.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been really wonderful. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Okay, we'll be in touch. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye.